Okay, so now we're on to some irregular verbs. Now, if you look at these five verbs here, dar, estar, ir, saber, and ser, you eventually might notice, or maybe you recall from when we learned the command conjugations, that the five of them have something in common, and that is that none of them end with the letter O in the yo form of the present indicative. Dar becomes doy, estar, estoy, ir is voy, saber, sé, and ser is soy. So that's kind of a good way to know that they're an irregular verb in the present subjunctive. So if you are unsure if it's going to have some sort of crazy change to it in this conjugation, just think about what's the yo form, which you should be doing anyway, right? Yo form, drop O, opposite ending. Well, if you go to dar, you go to the yo form, you drop the O of the ending. You can't because there isn't an O at the end. So you'll know it's kind of like a little signal to you to know that it's an irregular verb. And the same is true for the rest of them. Now, if you look at the conjugations, you can see a couple of things that I like to point out is they're actually, even though they're irregular, they're not too crazy. We've got dar, it becomes they. That's probably the craziest thing is you have an accent mark on this one. And the reason we have that accent mark here is because it is, there's another word, they, out there, of or from. That preposition, they, does not have an accent mark. So this one, the accent mark's there just to show you that this is the verb they, as it is here. No longer necessary here because there isn't another word they, so that we're going to get it mixed up with, or themos, or they, or then. Let me go to estar now. Now, estar has accent marks for different reasons. This is because we actually stress this syllable and this syllable and this syllable and this syllable and this syllable. We also stress this E, but that's the natural rule, so you need to write that with a written accent mark to show us that we stress it, because that's what we're supposed to do with that penultimate syllable. So, esté, estés, esté, estemos, estés, and estén. Now, those are the conjugations. Now, again, let's take a look. These two verbs, dar and estar, are both AR verbs, which, when we're doing present subjunctive, we go the yo form, drop the O at the end, and then we add the opposite ending, which is what we actually are doing here. These are the opposite endings. So they're not too crazy, especially if you get the yo form down, really memorize these yo forms, it'll, the pattern still keeps. Ir becomes vaya, again, an IR verb here, and it ends with an A, which is the opposite ending. So good. Vaya, vayas, vaya, vayamos, vayáis, and vayan. Saber becomes sepa in the yo form, pretty unusual. It also has that P in the preterite form, so maybe you can make that connection. But sepa, 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 sepamos, sepáis, and sepan. And ser becomes sea, seas, sea, seamos, seáis, and sean. Not Sean, as I hear many times. So ER verb, but they have A endings. So again, kind of does keep some sort of semblance of regularity. Now there's another verb that goes along with these five that isn't in here. I'm going to throw it on here right now. And maybe you're thinking about it. It's haber. Now, haber, we have learned that as to have, as an auxiliary verb, to go along with our past participles like hablado, and you say he hablado becomes I have spoken. Well, haber can also be in the subjunctive with those past participles, and that's when we get our, we would do the same thing with that pretérito perfecto, like he hablado. We can have haya hablado and hayas hablado. So you still need to know those forms as well. For right now, we might not use it as frequently as we will with the other forms, but it's actually just like ir. You can see it's going to be just like ir, except we're going to use an H instead of a V, of course. I'll go ahead and finish writing these out. But as you can see, they still follow that same pattern. It's an ER verb that has the opposite ending for A's. Now, another thing about speaking of this verb is we also have the conjugation I for there is or there are. That there's only one conjugation, it's I, there is, there are, coming from the verb haber. Now, it's a real special verb, kind of on its own, but there is a subjunctive equivalent that you should be aware of, and it's also aya, just like this form here and this form here. Aya is there is or there are, but with some sort of subjunctive trigger. I don't think there are 30 kids watching this video. No creo que haya 30 alumnos quienes están viendo este video. So, again, we'll talk about the uses later, but still something that you should be aware of.